So let us evaluate the themes of Waiting for Godot today. We know, all of us know, that Waiting for Godot is a very complex and it is a very puzzling play. We also know that several interpretations and several meanings are possible out of this play. Critics, or rather, we can say that different critics have approached this play with different angles. Even as a reader, even as an audience to this play, or even as a reader of this play, we can also have our own interpretations of the play. We can also try to interpret this play in our own manner. We know, my dear friends, that the play was a big success. It was a very striking success because of its unconventional themes and also because of its unconventional technique. We know, and we have discussed earlier in our class, that how unconventional a play it was with regard to its dramatic techniques. So, similarly, my dear friends, even with regard to the, the themes, also, we can look at this play as a very different and as a very unique kind of a play, right? So, so it has a richness of themes. This is what we can say, that the play actually offers multiple themes. Apparently, at the very first instance, we know that we know that nothingness is a very important theme of this play. We also know that waiting is a very important theme of this play. And when we say that waiting is a very important theme, it is not merely waiting for a certain person named Odo, but the play actually talks about man's endless wait. And in our previous class, or rather in our previous classes, we have said it time and again that this wait in the play can be interpreted in different manners. It can be interpreted in different ways. So this waiting is not certainly and merely for a specific person, for a certain person named Bodo, but the waiting is also about human beings' endless wait. As we know that we wait in our life for something or the other. Apart from this, I mean, apart from the theme of nothingness, apart from the theme of waiting, we can surely underline several other themes in the play. For example, there is a theme and a very important theme of the play, which can be called as that the play talks about the boredom of human life. So boredom can be seen as an important aspect of the play. Suffering, human misery, and the play can be taken as something which records the prevalence of human misery and human suffering. We have also said time and again that the play is also about ignorance. So ignorance can also be seen as an important theme of the play. And my dear friends, that together with ignorance, impotence is also a prime concern. Human impotence, human incapability, or human inability is also a very important part, is a very important aspect of this play. Apart from this, when you move ahead and when you try to attempt to dig the play or to interpret the play in more in-depth manner, you will also know that the play can also be seen as a criticism of the economic situation of mankind, right? The play is actually about economic exploitation. The play is also about intellectual exploitation. Those who have read the text and who know the plot or the text of the play, they are they must be knowing the Pozo Lucky story. And this theme of economic exploitation, intellectual exploitation, can be seen in that context. I mean, the Lucky Pozo story. Apart from this, if we carry on to point out some other themes of the play, meaninglessness of time and space is another important theme that has been highlighted in the play. Then identity, and in some of our other previous classes also we have highlighted this aspect, that identity or human identity can be a very important area, or it is an important area that has been taken up in this play. Then meaninglessness and purposelessness of life. Yeah, फिर meaninglessness and purposelessness of human being, meaninglessness and purposelessness of man. So this theme is also implied in the play. Now, it is not possible to go into the details of all these themes. It is not possible to take up all these themes one by one and discuss these themes in detail. But I'll be talking about a few important themes of the play, some detail here today. For example, my dear friends, let us begin with the theme of waiting. You know that we have been discussing this or saying this time and again, that this waiting is a very predominant theme of the. Now the question is, we're waiting about whom? Waiting for what? Etc. etc. So according to some, it is the waiting for Christ. It is the waiting for the Messiah, for human redemption. So the waiting for Christ, for man's redemption from misery, from sufferings. Some other people say, some other critics say that waiting implies man's long wait for death that can also relieve man, I mean, death that can also relieve man from misery and suffering. Apart from waiting, the person named Godo, the waiting here can also be interpreted, can also be meant in abstract terms. So waiting in the abstract could also be the theme of the play. Although Vladimir and Estragon are waiting for Godo, but they are not sure about this man Godo. They could not say who and what Godot is. They could not say that whether they are waiting at the right place or not. They could not say whether they are waiting at the right time or not. They do not know. I mean, Vladimir and Estragon do not know what will happen if Godot comes. They also do not know what will happen if Godot does not come. They are also not aware that what will happen if they stop waiting for Godot. So all these things have to be taken into consideration while discussing this theme of waiting. Dear friends, these tramps, I mean Vladimir and Estragon, they do not have any watch. I mean, they don't have watches. They don't have any schedule. They don't have any timetable. So this should also be taken into consideration when you discuss this theme of waiting. Then moving ahead, this resemblance between Godot and God is also a very striking feature. So this resemblance between Godot and God is also very striking, and it is unlikely to be missed by any reader, by any audience. Vladimir and Estragon are afraid of Godot. If you recall the text, they are afraid of Godot. So even the question arises that whether they really want Godot to come, because there are references in the play. If you remember the text, there are references in the play in which they behave in such a manner as if they basically do not want Godot to come. So the Tramps are afraid of Godot. So when at one juncture in a text, when Estragon suggests that they might drop the idea of waiting for Godot, Vladimir reminds him that they would be punished for doing this. They might be punished for doing this. This action of waiting, or rather this act of waiting, seems to be applicable to all of us. It is not only applicable to the two tramps, it is applicable to all of us. And this action of waiting, this act of waiting can also be seen with an angle of Christianity, right? Because if you recall the text, you will certainly agree with me that there are quite a few good references to Christianity, at least in the early pages of the play. So the tree, for example, can be seen as a symbol of cross, more especially when the tree appears in the second act with certain leaves. It certainly hints towards the Christian cross, uh, that for which Didi and Gogo were waiting did arrive, but they might have missed the appointment. So it is also possible that they were waiting for Godot, and it is quite possible that this Godot might have already arrived, but they have missed him. They were unable to recognize him. And I would like to end the discussion of this theme of waiting by telling you two names of two critics whom you can refer to if you want to get more information about this theme of waiting. Ward Hooker, W-A-R-D, Ward Hooker, H-O-O-K-E-R. So this Ward Hooker and Hinz Politzer, H-E-I-N-Z-P-O-L-I-T-Z-E-R. These two critics, Ward Hooker and Hinz Politzer, can be referred to when you are talking about the Christian elements of this theme of waiting. or even when you are evaluating the play with reference to the Christian angle. So with this, now I move on to another important theme, and that is time. Look here. I'm trying to convince you, to tell you that dear friends, time can be seen as another very important theme in the play, right? And you know that time has always been a very puzzling matter of discourse in scientific theory, also in philosophical thing aspect, also, and in literature also. So you know, and you are fully aware that scientists like Stephen Hawkins, Einstein, and Stephen Hawkins, you know, philosophers like Immanuel Kant and Samuel Taylor Coleridge, right? And in literatures also, for example, James Joyce, Virginia Woolf, and several others also. They have worked a lot upon the philosophical, the scientific, the physical, the metaphysical concept of time. So this time here in this play is also a very important thing. It is certainly a very important theme in the play. So, my dear friend, if you look at the play, if you look at the text of the play, you certainly know that the play actually tries to attempt a distinction between the clock time and the subjective time. There is a clock time in the play, and if you recall Pozo, you know, if you recall Pozo, even if you recall Vladimir Stragon, there is a reference to clock time in the play. And there is also a reference to subjective time in the play, right? Now, the passage of time, or rather the passing of time, is not absolute. Look here. This passing of time, this passage of time is relative. I hope those among you who have a background of science will be able to understand this more. Those among you who have tried to understood the theory of relativity and the theory of three dimensions, or rather even more than three dimensions, you can say. So those who have worked upon Einstein's theories, several theories by Einstein, will be able to understand this even more than myself, because I have never been a student of science, in fact. So this passage of time is not absolute, and the passage of time is relative, and it is relative to one's mental condition. Maybe to some of you who are not having a background of science, it will be very surprising when I say that this slicing of time into clock time of 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, and then minutes and then seconds is not a very convincing thing, right? And even this demarcation of time into compartments according to grammar called past, present, and future. So this is also something very different. So this dividing the time into clock as per the calendar and as per the past, present, future tense is basically not a very practical aspect. It's not a very scientific aspect. Time, or rather the passage of time, the passing of time, as I am saying, is not absolute, but it is relative to one's own mental condition. Now, at this juncture, I would like to bring in two very abnormal experiences of our life, right? One is a very common experience which we have heard in mysticism. So, whether it is Islamic mysticism or the mysticism of any religion, we have heard it that somebody was seen here in Jamshedpur, and the same person was seen at some another place on the same date and at the same time claimed by another one. Now, I am saying a very abnormal thing, I know, but mysticism of, I mean, mysticism across religions have these aspects. So, इस किस्म की कहानियां भरी पड़ी हैं. When you look at, मतलब, I mean, if you look at some sort of mysticism, तो हमारे यहाँ एक saying या एक aspect बहुत मशहूर है कि कोई बुजुर्ग हैं, कोई पहुंचे हुए अल्लाह के बंदे हैं, तो साहब वो जो है वो एक वक्त की नमाज यहाँ पढ़ते हैं और दूसरे वक्त की नमाज जो है वो मक्का मदीना में देखे जाते हैं पढ़ते हुए. तो ये बेसिकली अगर आप दुनियावी एतबार से और फिजिकल एतबार से और फिजिक्स के अनुसार देखेंगे तो ये बिल्कुल गलत है. लेकिन जब आप आइंस्टीन की थ्योरी ऑफ रिलेटिविटी के हिसाब से देखेंगे और जब आप आइंस्टीन के वो दो डायमेंशंस का कॉन्सेप्ट है उसके हिसाब से देखेंगे तो ये कहीं ना कहीं संभव होता हुआ दिखेगा. Similarly, there is a same story, there is a same concept about the concept of Miraj that had happened to Prophet Muhammad. The journey of the heavens which he undertook according to Islamic belief. I mean, some scholars say that it was a physical thing. He went there physically. Some scholars say, no, it is not possible. It is not a physical thing. He did not go there physically. It was a very symbolic and a very metaphysical kind of thing. Some people say in their stories, we have heard from our Maulanas and we have heard from our seniors and our elders that it is said that when he went for that journey to the heavens, so from that very bed from which he left, when he came back, the bed sheet and the bed was still warm. It is said that so anyway, छोड़िए, we are getting late. So the passage of time is not absolute. This is what I was trying to say. It is a very relative thing and it depends upon one's mental condition. So that is why this is very much visible and this is very much experienced. This can be experienced when you look at the way the two tramps behave and look at the way the two tramps talk with each other with reference to time. Then another aspect which we can take up with regard to or with reference to time is the passing of time. That how those two tramps were facing the problem of passing the time while waiting for Godot. Right. So that is another aspect. Now, if you remember the play, and if you remember the text, you will certainly find out that time, existence, reality, memory, and past have no meaning in the play. These things have no significance in the play. Ashish Sinha, can you confirm that I am audible?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So I was saying, my dear friends, that this time, existence, reality, memory, past, these things have no meaning, no significance in the play. And I hope you will agree that acts are meaningless. Acts here means acts that we do, actions. So acts are meaningless and time does not flow consecutively. If you remember the text, there is a discussion, what is the day today and why it is a Sunday only, why not it is a Tuesday, and what was the day which Bodo has told us to come. So acts are meaningless, time does not flow consecutively, memory seems deceptive, right? Remember that even they are unable to recall, memory does not work, right? So memory seems deceptive. Existence is an impression, whether it is reality or a dream. So existence is an impression or existence is a dream, and happiness is actually absent. Or rather, you can say that happiness is completely or acutely absent. There is a void in the play. There is a void in the play. And this void of the play supplies us as good a metaphor as any other form, as any other from the nothingness which the two tramps feel within and without them, right? So that feeling of nothingness which the two tramps feel. So these two tramps have come, if you recall the text again and again, these two tramps have come to the point of becoming hollow men. You know? They are to the point of becoming hollow men. And now at this juncture, I would like to recall you two more writers and two more texts. Can anybody point out when I said this word hollow men that these two tramps, Vladimir and Estragon, are on the verge of becoming hollow men in a hollow universe? So, can any one of you recall any text that you might have read or you might have came to know which have or has this kind of similar reference? Friends, I hope you know that text. It is
Sir,
Art of Darkness by क्या नाम था उसका? Conrad. Art of Darkness by Conrad. Mitzvah Kurtz is a hollow man. And all this comes from a T.S. Eliot poem, a very famous poem by T.S. Eliot. If you find time, go and read that poem. We are the hollow men, and even the title is Hollow Men, right? So these two tramps are on the verge of becoming hollow men in a hollow universe. So with this, I stop the discussion of the theme of time, and now I move on to another theme. And as I said, my dear friends, that human misery, human suffering is a very important theme in the play. So let us have a 2-3 minute discussion about this theme now. Now, this suffering or misery has been presented as an important theme of the play. The two tramps suffer intensely and incessantly. The two tramps, Con, Vladimir and Estragon, they suffer intensely and they suffer incessantly, continuously they suffer. Vladimir cannot even laugh because of his problems of kidney. You know? So Vladimir cannot even laugh without because he's suffering from an excruciating pain. But my dear friends, this cannot laugh situation is not simply because of the problem of kidney. This cannot laugh situation is also because of the predicament, because of the human condition, because of the human plight, P-L-I-G-H-T. So this cannot laugh is a situation which can be a political and economic pressure also. So Estragon's feet make his life miserable for him. Remember Estragon's struggle with his boot and his feet, etc. So Estragon's feet make his life miserable for him. And remember that both of them have basically no place to rest and no place to sleep. And also remember that Estragon is beaten daily by hooligans. Estragon is beaten daily by ruffians. Also, you will recall that they have nothing to eat except carrots, radishes, and turnips. Vladimir behaves in a manner as if he relishes eating those things. You know? He relishes eating those carrots, radishes, and turnips. But remember, Estragon was very honest. He tells us and he confesses before us that it is quite unbearable to eat carrots, radishes, and turnips all the time. Right? Now, take these carrots, radishes, and turnips as a symbol. As you know, so what I mean to say is that they have nothing like this. They even they are without any kind of past. They have nothing to look back upon. They remember their days, I mean their past, when they did not look so bad, when they did not look so shabby, and when they could go up to the Eiffel Tower from where they could even jump to death. But even gone are the days. So even those days of Eiffel Tower days, I mean, even those days were also not very good. Even those days were also far from happy days. So Stragon tried to kill himself by jumping into the river Rhine. Remember, there is a reference to this also, right? So Stragon tried to kill himself by jumping into the river Rhine. But Vladimir saved him. Vladimir fished him out, right? So all these things are or can be used when you attempt this theme of suffering, right? And another thing where I stop this discussion on the theme of human suffering and human misery is the dance of Lucky. Remember that dance, right? And can you recall that Lucky had named that dance as the net? The net. Now, this is also very symbolic, my dear friends. Can you recall the dance of Lucky? Can you recall Lucky's speech? Of course, if you will read the text, you can find all these things there. And we are being told by Pozo that Lucky has named his dance as the net. Now, the net is very symbolic. What is this net? The net of human life, the net of human misery and suffering, the net of human plight, Plight, the net of human condition. It is this net, my dear friend, in which we all are in. So we all are in this net, the net of life, right? And if you remember that very symbol of the net here in our Indian mythology also, Abhimanyu or uska jal, or Abhimanyu ka us jal mein phas jana. And that very concept, even the life has also been looked as per Indian philosophy as Maya Jal. So something which is Maya and something which is a Jal. And I can recall when I was doing my 11th, 12th days, we had a book in our compulsory English, right? And that book was a compulsory English collection of stories and poems, etc. The book was titled as The Web of Our Life. This was the title of a book that we have read in our 11, 12 days. Look at the title, The Web of Our Life, or rather the Web of Life. So we all are in this net, and there is no escape from this net, right? And even if you recall Act 2, when Pozo and Lucky comes back, right? Come back, sorry. And Pozo is now blind, Lucky is now dumb. Their suffering has multiplied to a great extent. Their physical pain, their physical affliction has multiplied to a greater extent. So with this, I stop this discussion on the theme of suffering, human suffering and human misery. And now I would like to take up another thing and a few aspects of that theme. I hope you will recall and you will agree with me that theme of ignorance, the theme of importance, and the theme of boredom is something which we have already referred to time and again in our previous classes. Friends, with reference to this theme of ignorance, importance, and boredom, once again let us recall the two traps, Stragon and Vladimir. And they are ignorant. We have discussed this point. And how they are ignorant, we have already discussed these things in our earlier classes. Right? They do not know who this Godot is. They are not sure whether they are waiting at the right place or not. They are not even sure about the time. They even do not know what will happen if Godot comes. So all these are things which I am basically repeating. You know all these things. And they do not know what will happen if they stop waiting. So they are lacking in the essential human knowledge. And since they lack the essential human knowledge, so they are ignorant. So they are ignorant. And since they lack the essential human knowledge, since they are ignorant, so they are unable to act. And since they are unable to act, so they are proving themselves as incapable. They are proving themselves as impotent. So thus, these characters, and by all these aspects of these characters, they produce in us a sense of a baffled situation. A sort of a bafflement arises in all of us. So this baffled situation, which we are unable to understand, and this baffled situation on which we have no control. So, my dear friends, if you recall the text, you will find that our two tramps, Vladimir and Stragon, they are seeking ways to pass their time. They narrate stories, you know everything. They narrate stories to pass their time. They sing songs to pass their time. They play verbal games to pass their time. They pretend to be lucky and pozo to pass their time, right? They do even physical exercises to pass their time. So what is this? All these different attempts to pass their time is basically the very essence of boredom. It's the very essence of boredom. So Vladimir and Stragon have traveled far towards nihilism. Now, at this juncture, this is for the first time that I am introducing this term with reference to waiting for Godot. I don't know, I'm not sure that in my previous classes, in any of the previous semesters, whether I have mentioned this terminology or not, I'm not sure. But this nihilism, my dear friend, is a very important philosophy, right? It's a very important European concept, right? And you should, as a student of literature, you should know all this concept of nihilism. And you will find, my dear friends, you will find a lot of modernist and postmodernist text in which this concept and this theory or this philosophy of nihilism has been discussed a lot. I mean, literature I'm talking about, although it is a philosophical thing. And sometimes some of the philosophers associate the concept of Buddhism or a lot of teachings and preachings of Buddhism with this concept of nihilism. I don't know, I'm not an expert in religion, and I'm also not an expert in philosophy. So I don't know whether how much it is correct and how much it is good to compare nihilism and Buddhism. But I have heard people saying these things. Even I have read somewhere critics mentioning these aspects. Anyways, whether it is right or wrong, I don't know. As I said, I'm not an expert in all these things. But certainly, as a student of literature, we should be aware about this theory of movement. So, what I wanted to tell you is a very simple thing here is that this nihilism has been hinted upon. This nihilism has been suggested here in this play through the characters of Vladimir and Nestor. My dear friends, they are in such a mental condition, they are in such a mental state in which nothing happens. Time stands still for them. You know? Time stands still for them. If Godot comes, Godot never comes. In the play, Godot never comes. I don't know whether in our life Godot comes or not. I'm not sure. So if Godot comes, a new fact may be introduced into their existence. But the fact of the matter is that Godot doesn't come. Had he come, if Godot comes, a new fact may be introduced into their existence. And if they leave the place without waiting for Godot, if they leave the place without meeting him, they will surely miss him. So their waiting is basically having an element of vagueness. This their waiting is standing, or their waiting stands on the fringe of hope and hopelessness. Hope and hopelessness. Right? So their waiting stands here. Now, with this, I stop this discussion and I go on to a discussion, a quick discussion on another theme, and that is the theme of purposelessness and meaninglessness of life. You know that time and again we have also referred to this aspect of the play, right? So the play, if it is said, it is interpreted in this manner also, that the play is about the meaninglessness of life. The passing of time by the two tramps indicates the boredom. Sorry, it indicates the triviality of human condition, the lack of significance in life, and also the constant human suffering. So this theme of meaninglessness also brings out the hollowness of man. This theme of meaninglessness or purposelessness, you can say, also brings out the insincerity of our social intercourse. Look here. This theme of meaninglessness, look here. And this is very important. I have said about this to you time and again, that even whatever we speak in our social discussions, whether they are really meaningful or meaningless or purposeful or purposeless, we don't know, we are not sure. So this theme of meaninglessness and purposelessness brings out the insincerity of social discourses, or rather social intercourse, the social interactions. So sometimes it has always been a very serious question, that why I am doing this. Now, so this class, for example, from 7 to 8 p.m. or something, right? What is there any purpose of this class? Is there any meaning of this class? What I am doing, why I am doing this exercise of this class? Why this whole exercise of organizing a literary and cultural event? Why this exercise of organizing a welcome or a farewell function? What is the utility and what is the futility of these things? Look here, look at these two words. Now, what is the utility of organizing a fresher party, and what is the futility of organizing a fresher party? What for? So it also brings us the insincerity of our social intercourses, social interactions, social discourses, ityadi. My dear friends, Vladimir and Stragon question each other. Look at the text. Remember the text. Look at the story. Remember the story. Vladimir and Estragon are questioning each other time and again. Vladimir and Estragon are contradicting each other time and again. Vladimir and Estragon are shouting at each other, abusing each other time and again. And Vladimir and Estragon are fighting with each other time and again. And Vladimir and Estragon are reconciling to each other time and again. Look here. So this Vladimir and Estragon question each other, sorry. They contradict each other, abuse each other, fight with each other, or become reconciled to each other without any serious meaning or intention of all these things. Without any serious meaning or intention of all these things. So the manner in which you people were fighting when you were organizing your facial function, right? I know the story behind the scene, the way you were having all those senseless fights, and the way the Satarang people, the Spark people are fighting nowadays with each other when they are organizing Satarang, right? So these are ways without any serious meaning, without any serious intention. Now, all these devices, Ekta Dogra fighting with Ashish Sinha, all these devices, Ekta Dogra as a cultural literary secretary of a Spark fighting with Nafis Mustafa, the cultural secretary. For what? So these are basically all time pass devices. We fight with our wives or we fight with our husbands, and then we start talking the next very moment. So all these devices are adopted by us in the play adopted by Vladimir and Estragon, and these are efforts to lessen the effect of waiting. Look here, these are efforts to lessen the effect of waiting. So Ashish Sinha, when we do these kind of things in our life, we can also look at it as an effort to lessen the effect of waiting. We are on a railway platform waiting for a train to come, and we start reading those advertisements and all those things at the railway platform. We are on board a train going to Delhi, and we have taken a very bad train from Jamshedpur, right? And we have to purchase some books and magazines and novels to kill our time. Similarly, all these exercises, I'm making it a more serious. All these exercises of marriages, of haldi and mehndi and all that and whatever, recall all those things. And even that very act of marrying and then 20, 30 years of marriage, anniversaries and all that, right? What for? Waiting for that one final destination. And what is that one final destination? One of despair and desolation. So these devices adopted by Vladimir and Estragon are an effort to lessen the effect of waiting. So Estragon takes his boot out. Remember, Estragon takes his boot out, gropes inside the boot, and shakes them in expectation as if something will fall out of the boot. And remember Vladimir doing the same exercise with his hat, right? So what is this? Certainly boredom, ennui and all that. So the essence of boredom and triviality is also present in that very scene. Can you recall that scene in which Vladimir and Estragon repeatedly put on and take off the three hats? Their own hat, and one hat that actually belonged to Lucky. This sheer lack of meaning compels them. This sheer lack of purpose, this sheer lack of meaning that compels them, that drives the two tramps, Vladimir and Estragon, to the acts, to all these kind of acts. And remember, Akshay Sinha, that even the sheer lack of meaning drives the tramps to the thoughts of suicide. The sheer lack of meaning drives the tramps to the thoughts of suicide. Now, the world that is depicted in the play, the world that is depicted in the play is such a world that where no significant action is possible. Remember the play. So the world that has been depicted in the play is such a world that no significant action is possible. So hence, even my dear Akshay Sinha, suicide is also not within their reach. Suicide is also not possible. So with this, I stop the discussion of the theme, right? Of boredom, importance, ignorance, whatever we were discussing, right? And now allow me to move on very quickly to another theme. And what is this? This is a very different kind of a theme that I'm taking up here. Exploitation. Exploitation. And this theme of exploitation, my dear friend, I may take some more time today because I have to finish this theme themes of the play, right? So the theme of exploitation is very implicit in the main story. It is very, very indirect. It is very implicit in the main story of Estragon and Vladimir. But this is very highly explicit. This has been expressed very directly in the Lucky Pozzo episode. So can you recall the Lucky Pozzo episode? Yes, you can. And if you can recall the Lucky Pozzo episode, you will agree with me that there is an economic angle, there is an economic exploitation and intellectual exploitation angle here, right? Economic exploitation of Lucky by Pozzo, intellectual exploitation of Lucky by Pozzo, right? So Pozzo accepts. Can you recall that in the play, Pozzo accepts that the beautiful words that he speaks comes from Lucky. The beautiful words that he speaks come from Lucky. He accepts that he has learned all these beautiful words from Lucky. Still, he holds Lucky by a rope. He treats him like an animal, right? This cruel treatment has debased Lucky so much that he even gives Estragon a vicious kick when he sympathizes with Lucky. So look here. Lucky is so much into the habit of all these things. He has been seasoned and his weathering has been done in such a way. I hope you understand geography also, right? So seasoning and weathering are two very prominent terminologies, right? So his seasoning and his weathering has been done in such a way that even Lucky feels more comfortable and more close to the one who exploits him the most. That is Pozzo. And he is not very comfortable with his sympathizer, Estragon. So he gives a vicious kick to Estragon when he tries to sympathize with him. Now, you know that Pozzo has accepted in the story that he gets a lot of things from Lucky. But he also says that even after getting everything from Lucky, he plans to sell him in the fair. And he also says that although it is better to kill him, but he having some sort of sympathy with Lucky or recognition of what he has done for me, I am just trying to sell him in the face. Now look here, it is the characteristic of all those rich people of the society. It is the characteristic of all those haves of the society to employ the have-nots. And these have-nots, my dear friends, are even employed to do their thinking work for them. To do their thinking work for them. Right? I hope you have heard that nowadays the capitalists of this country are going to open private schools and private universities. Right? You know this. The capitalists are now going into the business of education. They will be given permits and permissions to run educational institutions in this country. And now what they will do? They will hire vice chancellors, they will hire principals, they will hire registrars, they will hire professors, and all these vice chancellors, paid vice chancellors, paid registrars, and professors, they will be under the thumb of less educated employers. So even these have-nots have this ability to employ, these haves of the society, these haves of the society have the ability and have the resources to employ the have-nots even to do their intellectual thinking, to do their intellectual exercise. So if the owner of any, say for example, dash 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 university, I'm not taking any name, otherwise you will get angry that, sir, you are once again pointing out towards a specific businessman who is very close to a specific political party. So I don't want to name that specific businessman and that specific political party, right? But every political party of this country have a specific businessman. Every political party, right? So can you think that those businessmen will be hiring the highly qualified scientists for their business universities, commercial universities? And very recent is a case of Ashoka University in this country. I hope if you are aware about the current affairs, you know this case, right? So moving ahead, the net in which Lucky thinks himself to be caught. Remember that dance, right? So the net in which Lucky thinks himself to be caught is an economic net, my dear friend. It is a capitalist net. And we all are a victim of this economic capitalist, consumerist net. So Pozo says that only once Lucky failed to obey his commands. Even after, just a minute, even after Pozo's blindness, this is what I have already told to you earlier in one of my class, that even after Pozo's blindness, Lucky does not revolt. Lucky does not have the courage to revolt. Right? So that the rope is there. The rope of slavery is there. And we, all of us, are having this rope of slavery, though invisible, around our neck. So the exploited becomes so habitual of exploitation. The exploited becomes so demoralized that even they are unable to offer any resistance against the exploiters. Look here. Look here. Now, with this, I stop this discussion of this theme of exploitation, and I now quickly move on to another theme, and that is the theme of humanity and human pointlessness. This is an aspect which can be, which you can say is closer to the concept of meaninglessness and purposelessness. So, according to one interpretation of the play, the two tramps, Estragon and Vladimir, they represent the two sides of one person. Look here, This is a very unique thing. This is a very new thing that that we are discussing here in this class. है ना? Vladimir and Estragon are not two persons, but they are rather one. The two sides of one person, the two personas of one personality. So, isn't it a case of dual personality? Isn't it a case of? Isn't it a case of? Just a minute, please give me some time. Yeah. Isn't it a case of what you can say, some sort of a psychological split personality aspect? Look here. According to one very specific interpretation of the play, the two tramps represent the two sides of one person. And look here also, they may also represent the two sides of one community. Two sides of one community. And all this has been seen very personally. All this has been seen very subjectively. So look here, how Vladimir and Estragon are two sides of one personality or two sides of one community. How? Look at it. Vladimir represents the spiritual part of one's personality. It is Adnan Khan's spiritual part, and Estragon represents the animal part. I hope you know that in every man there is a man and an animal, right? The animal is represented by Hemant Pathak. Hemant Pathak, if you are here, please don't mind. I'm just taking an example. मुझे जो नाम याद रहते हैं मैं वही ले लेता हूँ, ठीक है? So, है ना? Every man has these two: the human and the animal, the human and the beast, right? The civilized and the wild. So Vladimir represents the spiritual part, and Estragon represents the animal in man. Look here. Let us move ahead. Pozo and Lucky represent a person or a community seen objectively. Vladimir and Estragon, मैंने कहा, they can be seen subjectively. Now I am saying that Pozo and Lucky represent a person or a community objectively. Pozo is the exploiter, the user of ideas. Look here. Pozo is the exploiter, the user of ideas. Lucky is the exploited, but the creator of ideas. It's Zabardast tragedy. Pozo is the exploiter, the user of ideas, right? I don't want to name, otherwise you will once again become angry. You know, the way Sachin Tendulkar stands in front of one very specific capitalist character of this country, right? So Pozo is the exploiter, the user of ideas, and Lucky is the exploiter, but the creator of ideas. We suffer with Estragon and Vladimir. We Khan, we Ashish Sinha, we Adnan Khan, we Ekta Dogra, we Vinay Anand. We suffer with Estragon and Vladimir. We share their hopes, we share their fears, we share their hatred, we share their love. But we view Pozo and Lucky through the eyes of Estragon and Vladimir. Look and listen to me very carefully. We view Pozo and Lucky through the eyes of Estragon and Vladimir, and we see in them the social surface of human life. We see in them the social surface of human life. So, these four characters, my dear friends, four characters, Estragon, Vladimir, Lucky, Pozo, right? They represent a picture of humanity. The play appears to us as an attempt of human beings to fiddle their way through life, setting up a wall of hope and despair. Friends, Godo symbolizes the greatest of these roles, namely that there is some point in existence that we are keeping some mysterious appointment upon this earth. It does not matter much who Godot is, because remember, the play is not about Godot. The play is about creating. I repeat, this is very important. Godot symbolizes the greatest of these hopes, namely that there is some point in existence. There is some money matlab in existence. That we are keeping some mysterious appointment on earth. उम्मीद पे हैं कुछ तो है ना. So we are keeping some mysterious appointment on earth. It does not matter much who Godot is, because the play is not about Godot. The play is about waiting. The play is about life upon this earth, Ashish Sinha. The play is about existentialism. The play is about human physical existence. The play is about the being of man. The play is about the existence upon this earth. The play is not about the life hereafter. मरने के बाद ये होगा, वो होगा, ये मिलेगा, जन्नत मिलेगी. The play is not about that. The play is about that very existence of man upon this earth. Right? So different from this approach of the play, we can also see several other angles. Now I'm coming to the concluding part of my discussion today. So the play can also be seen as a fable. I hope you know in your semester, and you have already done all these things of fable, these fable allegory kind of things, right? So the play can also be seen as a fable about life. That has no point. A life that has no point. A life that is devoid of action. No action, right? So the two central characters, I mean Estragon and Vladimir, they are only alive, but they are not living in the world. Look here. I am saying a very puzzling thing, a very juxtaposed thing. The two central characters are alive, but they are not living in the world. The world has become empty for them. Here, a world no longer exists. There is no chance of a collision with the world. The two tramps are dimly aware about this lack of pointlessness. Sorry, this lack of point. So they are dimly aware about pointlessness. They are dimly aware about actionlessness. Right? So with this, I stop this discussion also, and I quickly move on to another aspect, and that is the theme of salvation. This is also we have touched and hinted upon in some of our previous discussions. Right? Some critics have found a religious meaning in the play. Right? So Vladimir at the very beginning of the play, if you can remember, raises the issue of human salvation. Right? He looks worried at the very thought of the two thieves being damned according to the Holy Bible. Right? So all his life, Estragon has compared himself to Christ. And he says rather enviously that they crucified him quick. Godot may represent God, and their persistence, their whose? The persistence of Vladimir and Estragon in waiting for Godot may also show their faith in God. The mutual attachment between the two tramps and Vladimir's protective attitude towards Estragon has also been interpreted as Christian values, or Christian, don't say values, Christian virtues. However, it is difficult to find any elaborate religious pattern throughout the play. It is difficult to find any religious pattern throughout the play. Right? Now, let us come to the end part, the conclusion. So, my dear friends, looking at all those discussions that we have done previously, or all those discussions that we have done today, we can simply agree with each other that Waiting for Godot is a very multi-dimensional, it is a very multi-faceted play. Right? It is, we can say that it is a very multi-thematic play. So apart from all those themes that I have mentioned earlier and above, you can also look at several other themes. I mean, I'm not ruling out the modules of, I'm not ruling out the presence of other themes also. For example, being a student of language, I can also see a very important theme of inadequacy of human languages as a means of communication. Even I have hinted about this in our introduction, right? So the inadequacy of human languages as a means of communication. So they searches for words, and they, Vladimir and Stragov, they search for words in the text. They were unable to get appropriate words. So they leave their sentences incomplete. And the writer puts dot 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 something. Silences, as we said, are very important. Why? Because the author believes, and even Stragon and Vladimir also hint towards the inadequacy of human languages as a means of communication. I don't know whether I have told this to you or not, that we basically look at language as a means of communication. Correct. We are correct. You are also correct in assessing this and asserting this, that language is a means of communication. But can you ever think, and did you think in that way that a language actually is not a means of communication, it is basically an obstacle to communication. Language is a deterrent to communication. Instead of felicitating communication, language actually damages communication. So the inadequacy of human languages as means of communication can also be seen as a very important theme. The play also means different things for different people. The play exposes man's tragic condition, and at the same time, the play also exposes us, or it has a timeless validity and universality. You know? On one hand, we all know that it is an existentialist play about existentialism on one hand, while on the other, it also mocks at existentialism. It also laughs at the very idea of existence, right? So it seems to have some religious implications also. Yet, it also mocks at religion. And, there are Christian concepts of salvation also. Yet the play is nihilistic also. There is hope also. There is hopelessness also. There is a concept of moksha and nirvana and liberty and salvation of religion also. And there is the play is nihilistic, very sadistic also. Right. So the play ends, and I also end my discussion today. The play ends on a strange note of hope. In सबके बावजूद, तमाम pessimism के बावजूद, with all types of sadism, pessimism, nihilism, hopelessness, meaninglessness, purposelessness, pointlessness, everything, right? The play actually, my dear friends, ends on a strange note of hope. And what is that strange note of hope? Look here. This is again very meaningful and very substantial. That the play ends on a strange note of hope, that the two tramps would be able to come the next day also. This is the hope, that the two tramps will be able to come the next day also. But can you remember when the Act 2 ends, they say that remind me of taking a rope tomorrow so that we can commit suicide. The play ends on a strange note of hope that the tramps will be able to come the next day, but along with a piece of rope with which they will hang them. With this, I stop my discussion here, right? I stopped my discussion here, and